With the Gate 37, we learned about family, kindness, and community. And also that to have strength in all relationships, holding to your word and keeping your promises allows everyone to thrive and also feel supported in their lives. And when we watch the patterns of humanity, we see the truth and the cycles that show us potential for the future. A future that can be predictable, and knowing the possibilities makes us feel secure, but only if the patterns hold. And when they falter, that's when doubt and suspicion comes in. Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and welcome to episode 8 of the Mandala of Life, the Gate 63, called After Completion, and also the Gate of Doubt. And if you haven't already, please make sure to check out the previous episodes of the Mandala of Life. For now, let's move into a new energy, one that's all about logic, patterns, and our expectations about how many parts of our lives should unfold every day. This is where a question leads to an answer. And before we get into the Gate 63, I wanted to mention that the Sun will transit the Gate 63 from March 1st to the 6th, 2021. Ra Uru said that the best questions he'd been asked happened when the Sun or Mercury transited the Gate 63. So it might be a good time to pay a little extra attention. With the Gate 63, we return to collective energy and once again step away from the tribe, which means that it's all about being social and also sharing the information. This is also the first energy that we'll be encountering that is all about logic. So far, the gates we've discussed in the collective energy spoke to abstract or starting to build a new experience, and also seeing how it goes as we move into the experience. Abstract collective energy uses a lot of the past and recollections to create the future experiences, whereas logic uses patterns to predict future experiments. We could say that logic is all about experiments and abstract energy is all about experiences. The Gate 63 is found in the head center, and it's the fuel for awareness of the Gate 4, which is found in the ajna. So what begins as doubt in the Gate 63 fuels the Gate 4 to find an answer. The head center is also one of the two pressure centers of the body graph. The other pressure center is the root center. The pressure of the head center is all about trying to figure things out. It's also a place where we get inspired and is said to be connected to the pineal gland. So this pressure that the head center has fuels the conceptualizing processes about the world and life for the ajna. The ajna is considered an awareness center where we theoretically mentally organize our reality. Within the Gate 63 is a pressure to formalize. When we have an open head center, the pressure and inspiration comes from all those people who have defined head centers. Having a defined head center is not common, which means that only a third of the population actually have a defined head center. So they're responsible for all the inspiration that the open head centers get. When you have a defined head center, the pressure comes from your particular channel or channels that you have defined in your own personal body graph. So for instance, if you have the 6124 channel defined, that means you have the pressure to know the unknowable. So if we get back to the Gate 63, we can see that questions are very common here, especially if things are needing to be proven. So we could say that this is very scientific and, as we said, logical energy. The kind that watches patterns and learns and comes to expect certain outcomes after an experiment has been completed. Or in everyday life, it's all the patterns that are expected for the collective as a whole. So for instance, if you buy a ticket for a flight to Aruba, the prediction would be that if you show up at the airport at the specific time when the flight is supposed to be, then you will board the flight and you'll fly to Aruba. But if for some reason you arrive at the airport and the flight's canceled, then this is where doubt and suspicion can arise because a predictable pattern has shifted. And if you get on a later flight and your trip goes as planned, the anxiety might be very slight. But on the other hand, if there's no replacement flight and no correction to the pattern, then the anxiety can grow, and with it, uncertainty. So it's easy to see that the moment the pattern doesn't work, fear can be activated. And when you have this energy, logic can be something that you hang your hat on because it's all about predicting the future. And as soon as there's doubt, there can be a question about the safety of the future. There can be less fear or anxiety about flaws in the patterns because they can usually be corrected. But if there's a total mutation in the pattern or complete reconfigurations, then that's when it really gets a little anxiety provoking. So it's easy to see that when you carry this energy, the fight to keep the status quo or the way things always were with a sense of conservative views can be very common. And there's always potential to not want to try anything different and to always do the same thing because you like the patterns and the security that it gives you. As humans, we understand that collective logic forms the patterns of life. Because of our patterns and our need to continue on with a particular rhythm, logic has a lot of power in civilization because the role of logic is to guide humanity into the future. The bottom line is that as a collective, we trust logic and the patterns of our lives. For that very reason, science is usually held in a higher esteem than something that can't be proven definitively, like our intuition. There's always going to be a place in humanity for the certainty of patterns because it provides comfort for us to know exactly what to expect in our lives. But where this energy can go wrong is when the logical doubt that we need in our lives becomes doubt and suspicion. This suspicion can be about everything we encounter in our lives. This can show up as doubting yourself and your capabilities, or even the abilities of the people who you love, or always casting a shadow of doubt on everything in your life. This pressure of uncertainty demands proofs, facts, and substantiation, and it can get out of control. At worst, the suspicion can lead to a feeling of paranoia. But with all energy, there's always potential for balance. Richard Rudd, author of The Gene Keys, talks about the doubt of the Gate 63, or what he calls the Gene Key 63. He talks about it as being the spirit of inquiry, and that if this is focused enough, it eventually leads to the truth. If we find the beauty within the energy and finally make peace with the self-doubt, it can lead to a process of freeing yourself from the mind chatter that spins a million scenarios, the kind of scenarios that can ignite a deep fear and also uncertainty. But when we learn to navigate this energy, you can use it to benefit your life because it allows you to recognize that sometimes your internal doubts may not necessarily be real and they could possibly even be an illusion. While other times the doubts and the concerns about the pattern can be right on the mark. Amazing and insightful questions originate here. The kind of questions that have far-reaching ramifications that shift the way we see things. And it's also important to remember that a question always begins a process of understanding for us, so questions should be welcomed. And another thing to keep in mind is that because this energy is never motorized because it comes from the head center, it's always going to be better received if it's invited out of you or people ask you about what you're doubting or the suspicions that you have. Otherwise, the information might just fall flat, even if it's valid and important. From a worldwide perspective, the energy of the Gate 63 says that all doubt leads to truth, and as Ra Uru said, is connected to the spiral of life. As he said, in the spiral of life, all ends are beginnings. The Gate 63 is just one more component in the Mandala of Life, which we can use as a pathway for our existence. There are a few ways we can look at the spiral of life theme and its connection with the Gate 63. First, we can speak to the idea that all ancient culture philosophies from different cultures have believed that life is more like a spiral, as every lesson we learn in life eventually comes back to us until we learn the deeper meaning. And there's also more of a potential that every time the lesson comes around again, that it'll be even more challenging than it was before. The theory is that when we fail to learn from our lessons of life, there can be potential consequences. But when we do get the message and conquer the lesson, everything we've learned can lead to infinite possibilities for evolution and also growth. So this theory speaks to what many people already know and have already experienced and noticed about the themes of their lives. Usually there's themes that they're uniquely connected to, that are extremely important to the trajectory of their lives. From relationships to how we handle money, the themes are abundant. The sooner we see the patterns and the themes that we need to master, the quicker we can learn the lessons and hopefully receive the rewards for having learned them. We can also see the gate 63 and its name after completion that talks to a cycle being completed. But since we know that cycles are infinite, both the answer and the question are contained within this energy. To expand on that concept, we can say that every question answered leads to another query. Humanity is always trying to reach further into the cosmos with a constant need to obtain one more answer. It's like imagining a 3-year-old with one word: why? Questions really are at the core of the nature of being human. And the last way to connect the 63 to the patterns of life speaks to the macrocosms, or the order of things, and the magical patterns that are found in plain view for all of us to see, yet many times we never do. There are many names for the natural patterns of nature: the golden spiral, or a logarithmic spiral, or spirals that grow outward by a factor of the golden ratio. Also called the Fibonacci sequence, where the 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 5 to the 8 to the 13 to the 21 and so on, where the previous two numbers add up to the next number in the sequence. This mathematical formula is abundant in nature. So if we know that 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 equals 3, and then 3 plus 2 equals 5, and then 5 plus 3 equals 8. It doesn't matter if you know the mathematical pattern, but looking around, you'll see it's almost anywhere you can look in nature. In many plants, you can see the way the leaves grow in that particular pattern. We can also see patterns in a spiral where we see the characteristic of every part is reflected in the whole as it spirals out and becomes larger. These spirals can be seen in the strands of our DNA and many parts of our physical bodies. The golden ratio continues in spirals, showing up in the arms of spiral galaxies. So the spiral of life and the patterns of the gate 63 are all around us if we look. There really is something bigger than us that constructs the patterns of the universe and says nothing in the universe is as random as we might imagine. And once again, the mandala of life spins, and we learn that the patterns of our lives show us the direction of where we're going. And doubt can lead to a question that can give us an answer about an amazing new beginning. And sometimes when the patterns change and a mutation arrives, we suffer despite the hard work that we've put in to maintain the pattern. And we might think about giving up or going back to what was, but when the gate 22 enters with grace and a sense that if we hold on, this too shall pass, and when it does, it may leave a beautiful creation that we never would have expected, a creation that makes our heart sing, from the beauty and also the deep melancholy that allowed us to feel alive in our creative process. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back soon with the next gate of the mandala of life, the gate 22. The gate of grace. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.